Hawaiian pizza. Drake. Ryan Gosling. Have you ever had that, wait, that's Canadian moment? Like when you find out a massive celebrity or a very successful TV show comes from right here at home? Welcome to the wild world of Canadian content, also known as CanCon. A lot of people think CanCon is just a bunch of boring government policies, but it's actually a survival kit designed to differentiate Canadian culture from American culture in the media. Canadian content isn't just about entertainment. It's a balancing act. We have to walk the tight line between being global enough to sell to the world and local enough to keep our own identity alive. The interesting part is that these policies don't really care if the content looks Canadian. They care that Canadians are the ones making it. So, let's go through your 4-part CanCon starter pack. Let's start with the song that has zero traces of being Canadian. It's a fantastic example of the maple system doing exactly what it's designed to do. A song generally needs to meet 2 of the 4 requirements of the maple system, that being music, artist, performance, and lyrics. This song hits 3. But have you ever noticed that the song is about the galaxy and evolution, and there's not a single mention of Tim Hortons or the CN Tower? J. Richard Pattinson argues that this is because Canadian artists often adopt a placeless sound to break into the American market. This brings us to a super important point. Canadian content policies don't require you to act or sing about Canada. Instead, it's meant to be an industrial backbone so Canadian artists can compete globally. The Bare Naked Ladies were able to use a universal identity to become globally successful, all while remaining 100% CanCon. Moving one step closer to home, we have the novel Camp X. It may feel like a global spy thriller, but it's rooted in the real history of a top-secret spy training camp in Whitby, Ontario. To get support from the Canadian Book Fund, a book has to be written by a Canadian, printed in Canada, and be at least 48 pages long, along with a list of other requirements. This is where we begin to see history get mixed with entertainment. Scholar Richard Carroll talks about the tension between history and fiction, but I think this book is more of a Trojan horse. It takes a complicated part of our World War II history and wraps it in the global genre, the action thriller. It fulfills the policy's goal of making sure history isn't just a boring lecture, but something that gets young readers excited and interested in our nation's history. The film Indian Horse isn't trying to hide its roots. It's a direct look at the trauma of the residential school system. It's a part of our history that has long been overlooked. This film had to hit a 10-point scale for certification. It falls under the 1991 Broadcasting Act, which says our media should serve to safeguard, enrich, and strengthen the cultural, political, societal, and economic fabric of Canada. Paul De Silva warns that representation on screen isn't enough if there's a gap behind the camera. While this is an Indigenous story, many key creative roles were held by white filmmakers. Look at the scene where Saul practices hockey at night. It uses hockey, a national icon, to bridge the gap between difficult history and a sport that everyone recognizes. It's a powerful negotiation, using a national symbol to force us to look at a national tragedy. Finally, we reach what might be the peak of Canadian content, corner gas. This is the anti-Big Bang Theory. It doesn't care about the US or global market at all. This show is the literal definition of Section 3D of the Broadcasting Act. It safeguards and enriches our social fabric by making a tiny fictional town in Saskatchewan feel like the center of the universe. Scholar Stephanie Patrick compares it to Schitt's Creek, which she says minimizes its Canadianness to sell to a wider audience. But Corner Gas, its localness is its bread and butter. It doesn't need to be a global hit to be culturally significant. It proves our identity isn't just something we export, it's something we build for ourselves, proving that a gas station in the middle of nowhere is just as important as a penthouse in Manhattan. So what's the takeaway? CanCon policies aren't a discrete scale for measuring how Canadian something is. It's a massive spectrum. It's the invisible theme song that builds our industry, the spy thriller that teaches us history, the national drama that makes us reflect, and the local comedy that makes us laugh. These rules, Maple, the point system, the 48-page rule, They aren't just policies, they're an architecture that gives us as Canadians the space to exist. They ensure that in a world full of big American stories, the Canadian voice, in all its forms, is loud, clear, and most importantly, ours. Thanks for watching. I hope you had the same, wait, that's Canadian moment? Now go, download CBC Gem, and watch some Canadian content. Okay. Fade to black.